said, today is the first iteration of Is Collaboration Important? And when I was looking around, the only person that I wanted to include in this first conversation is someone who I would guess the last 5 years, you can always correct me, has just been one of my favorite co-writers, because, well, that's what we're here to discuss. Why did we find each other? And for me, Tori Tullier become one of my favorite co-writers. And the biggest thing for me that I'm going to say today is it was trust. There was something that I felt very comfortable being in the room with her. I felt trust. I felt safe, and I felt like I could dare to suck. I felt like I could be really off and she wouldn't be upset with me or whatever. And we just found this place that we could work together. So with that, everybody welcome Tori Tullier, who is sitting in
Hello.
her place with, I think, the coolest microphone I've seen in a long time. It's really cool. It's awesome. And I'm gonna just open it up and start out, and Tori, tell us your background, your story, and as you navigated life and where you navigated that earlier, and why songwriting.
Hello, everybody. I'm excited to be here. I am from Annapolis, Maryland originally, and my dad's musical, so I kind of grew up with a lot of music in the house. It was a big part of my upbringing, and started writing songs when I was about 12 or 13 years old and had a band in high school. We did kind of like pop piano, Sarah Bareilles type stuff, and was deciding kind of where to go to school. Ended up going to school for music in Miami, Florida, and did a couple of internships there, one in New York City at a record label, and then one in Nashville. I always loved, like, writing was always my favorite part of the musical process. And so, I just kind of jumped in. And when I found out that there was this whole community in Nashville and that you could kind of be just a songwriter, that's when I decided I was going to move here and really do it full time.
Cool. How important is the beginning stages of your education and career for you? Meaning, was the love for music very, very early for you, or did you fall in love with it as you moved along? Education, learning, taking lessons, you're an amazing piano player. Like, was piano first and then songwriting? Was songwriting first and then piano? Give us a little bit of insight into that.
Yeah, I started with piano and started taking classical lessons. And when I first started, I think I was around 8 or 9, or no, it was probably earlier than that. It was pretty early, and I had a teacher that I just really didn't like, and I hated, reading music and kind of, I just didn't like any of it. And then about 3 or 4 years later, I went to my parents and I was like, I kind of want to try this music thing again. And they found a teacher, Miss Nina, who was Russian and just had all this beautiful music. And even though I was 11 or 12, she wasn't giving me kind of the dinky Mary Had a Little Lamb pieces. It was like, even the stuff that she was picking out was really inspiring at that age. So, I feel like that was the first time I kind of was learning and moved by something while I was playing it. And I just started kind of making up my own songs on the piano, just improvising. And I would I would tape record them because we had tapes back then, and give them to friends as birthday presents. And then I think that combined with just being, an angsty middle schooler with diary entries full of things, just kind of led it to songwriting. And it wasn't anything that, you know, someone told me to do. I just kind of did it and, you know, walked into the kitchen and I was like, "Hey mom, I just did, look what look what I made," just like a kid being like, "Is this cool?" I don't know. And yeah, it just kind of spiraled from there and getting inspired by a lot of different artists like Ben Folds or people who just did cool stuff with piano. For me, like lyrics were always kind of just secondary in the beginning. It was like, oh, just make something up that like fits the melody so I think a big part of my development was really honing in on lyrics and being like, okay, what do we want to say here? But yeah.
Mhm. So when you were in those beginning stages of piano and you were recording yourself, improvising, and you would put these things together, give them as gifts, which is such a great idea. Um, eh, was there any thought in your brain of, oh, I can do this for a living and make money at it? Or were you mostly pushed forward by just the desire to make music?
I think I was just doing it for fun and, it was just yeah, I liked it. I started kind of playing out and, once I got a band together, I think it was just something I enjoyed. I mean, maybe in the back of my head, there was the idea of like, oh, you could be successful at this and this could be a career. And definitely around kind of high school or college time, my parents really wanted me to go to school. That was kind of a non-negotiable. So when I was trying to figure out where to go and what to do, I was looking at music schools and was lucky enough to get into the University of Miami, which has a great program. Somehow they did not give me a sight reading test. I think like something happened in the universe and the guy forgot to give it to me. It was sitting there on the piano in my audition and he just didn't do it. So somehow I wound up there and I'm super thankful because it was kind of an insulated environment. I look at like kids now going to Belmont or school in New York and like these cities that are music cities and you're like trying to find yourself in college and I'm just like, man, that's kind of tough.
Mhm. Did you find a group of people in your school community that you felt you connected with?
I did. I will say though, I'd never heard of co-writing until I came to Nashville.
Mhm,
And everyone was kind of just doing their own thing. We would collaborate in like a performance setting or,
mhm.
you know, like a live music setting, but no one was writing together. And so I think when I came to Nashville and sort of realized, there's this whole community of people that go into little buildings with each other and write songs every day, that was really a big revelation for me. And I didn't know that existed. And so I remember a couple of my other classmates, we did an internship in Nashville and then we had one more year of school left. And kind of after we experienced Nashville, then we started co-writing in Miami. And I think like that kind of started other people maybe to do it. I don't know. But yeah, it was definitely very much a Nashville thing in my eyes, at least.
So it brings me to the next question I have. Why Nashville? Why was Nashville where you chose to move to?
I had spent the summer before in New York interning at EMI Virgin Records in their A&R department, which was an incredible experience. I think like Katy Perry was one of the big artists signed there. So with her Teenage Dream album. So it was just like a really, cool thing to be a part of. And the guys there really took me under their wing and brought me out to showcases and all this stuff. But New York, I love New York. I would totally live in New York if I had, an unlimited budget, but
Right.
it's kind of it can be a rough place to get your footing, I think. And it just felt, I didn't necessarily feel that kind of community there. And, the guys that I interned with, they knew that I was a songwriter and an artist. And um, Ryan, this one guy said, if you really want to pursue this, you should look at Nashville. So I came down to Nashville the next year and did an internship in A&R at Warner Brothers. And it was a totally different beast because it was all about the song. Like my job there was for one of the A&R reps. She would have, 3 CDs full of songs for a weekend that she would just listen to. And so I was hearing all of those songs that were in consideration for Blake Shelton or whoever. And it was really focused around finding songs. And the song that was big the summer that I was there was The House That Built Me, which was just, to this day, one of the best songs ever written, I think, and just such a beautiful kind of introduction to what people were doing down here and the kind of songs that were being written. And I heard that, I'm from a more kind of poppier background, so a lot of the super country stuff didn't resonate with me, but songs like that or like Need You Now from Lady A or songs by Keep the Urban, I was like, okay, that's something that I would, aspire to be a part of, and that excites me. And so, yeah, I just, I like the city. It was a small city back then. You could go to the Bluebird, you could go to the listening room back when it was, a small little venue, and you could see, you would run into people that you had seen at the show the week before, or you would meet, oh, I write with so-and-so, you should meet so-and-so. It was just like a really natural way to connect with people and a very welcoming community.
Mhm. So I'm going to expand just a little bit on your comment that you would have gone to New York or maybe another place, but that financially that was difficult. So you picked a place that, bless you, Marianne, you picked a place that you felt like you could thrive in. And I want to expand that a minute because I think it's been taught to us, you got to get to Nashville, you got to get to LA, you got to get to New York. There is truth to that because I think you find other people that are aligned with your values as a songwriter. Because whether we want to think about it or not, being in a room with someone, I feel like being aligned with them emotionally, spiritually, intellectually, drive, passion, all of that's got to line up. But then the city that you're in, I feel like has to be workable.
Mm-hmm.
Because for me, if I was busy putting out fires all the time or busy trying to afford an apartment in New York, I was going to have very little time to write. So for me, it was a financial decision too. I wasn't drawn necessarily to Nashville as a community. I was drawn to Nashville because it was affordable. Speak to that a little bit. Like, did that
Yeah.
help your decision as far as that?
Yeah. I mean, I think that was a big part of it. And, I moved to Nashville in 2011. So it was still affordable then, and New York was not impossible. I don't think anything's impossible, but yeah, I would have had to figure out how to make way more money just to survive.
Mhm.
And, for me, it was quality of life too. I wanted to be able to have a car and drive to get my groceries and have a washing machine and not have six roommates.
Mhm.
And just kind of get on my feet somewhere that wasn't so kind of overstimulating around me and that I knew wasn't going to be so difficult.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I will say there's people all the time now that make it work without being here,
Mhm.
so I do agree. It's kind of like, do what you have to do to make enough money to survive, maybe not to be super cushy, but to not, worry about buying the fancy pasta at the grocery store when you want it or whatever, or the latte or whatever.
Yeah.
Because that, I think in order to thrive, you have to be happy, you have to be healthy, and, not be doing a job that kills you till 3 in the morning or whatever. You have to make sure that you're taking care of your body and your mind.
Mm. Excellent question. I could spend a lot more time on that, but I'm gonna move on through. So you make your move to Nashville, you're doing an A&R job, you're kind of understanding more and more that the song is as important as the artist and the production and all of that. So you get that education. So as you start to find collaborators, what is it about a collaborator that draws you to them? If you can kind of give us a scope
Mhm.
of like when you meet someone, what makes you think, oh, I think they would be a good person to work right with?
Yeah. I think I think it can be so many different things. I will say too, when I first moved here, I wrote with anybody and everybody.
Hmm.
I was not putting anything through a filter. I was not, gut checking, is this a good room or a bad room to be in? And, you know, I think I think that was good for me because it just got my muscle working. Like, and I never regret writing 4 or 5 days a week, and kind of strengthening that. I will say, for me personally, I wish that I had had a stronger sense of myself and my ability before jumping into that, which we can kind of speak on that at some point too. But when I'm meeting people and considering, would we work well together, I think it's got to have at least one thing that excites you, and whether that's an amazing voice, um, you love what they do musically, they're an incredible lyricist, they're just fun to be around, and they bring a great energy to the room. It can be any, obviously the best thing is maybe all of those things, but even if someone only has one of those things, I think it's worth exploring, because I find, you don't always want to be in the most comfortable room sometimes, if that makes sense. Like, I think it's important, baseline, there always has to be respect and trust. Like, that's like a non-negotiable, and you have to feel safe, like what Bonnie said, opening. But I also think it's important to write with people that stretch you or maybe challenge you, and write with people, you know everyone always says it, but it's like dating. You have to like get out and be like, wow, I really loved that, or like, that was a really great compliment.
Mhm.
To, if they're really strong at melodies and I'm more of a lyric person, like, and I like what they do, they like what I do, like, that is great. But I think it's also worthwhile to be like, wow, that right was really hard. Why was it hard?
Right.
Was there not space for me to speak freely? did I find myself holding back because I didn't feel sure of myself in that room? You know, were they like way, way, way more advanced than I am? And I felt like I was just like, trailing along. Like I think any of those situations are, you know, good experiences, and you kind of have to like maybe have the good and the bad, and sometimes it takes a couple sessions to realize, I don't like how I'm feeling in this, right? Or this is awesome, I want to go grab coffee with this person.
Mhm.
you know there's just so many different variables.
Yes. I love what you said about writing with anybody and everybody, just to kind of use that muscle and learn. And then you start to be a little more discerning, which those of you, I'm going to show you in a second, but I think the writing alone, Tori, kind of created this ability to really be an all-encompassing writer. There aren't many people that can do lyrics, music, play an instrument the way you do, which we're going to talk about your project here in a minute, because
Oh,
Tori
thank
has
you.
done a whole project where she wrote every single song by herself, produced it, has put it out this year, and has had just a great reception to that. But I wanted a couple of things. One is, if we are the best person in the room, we're probably not in the right room.
Mm-hmm.
Like, challenging ourselves by putting ourselves in uncomfortable positions is as important as getting comfortable, right? Because if you feel like you're the best in the room, then you're not being challenged at all. So step back from that sometimes and put yourself in a room of someone that's maybe better at something than you are, so that you can stretch a little bit. And then also, I loved what you said. You ask yourself, why is something hard? And I'm going to share this, I'm embarrass you to no end, but you know 2022 was a very interesting year for me. I've had 24, 26 years of writing songs. I've had a decent career. It's been fine. It's kind of and I'm not being humble. I'm just saying it's been okay. And I was starting to get a sense of like, maybe my songwriting career is starting to sunset and I need to look at other things to do. And Tori and I had, and it was completely by accident, on January the 6th, we had a co-write with an artist that I am over the moon about. I think this girl is just magical, and I can't even explain it other than I've gone to see her play a few times, and I'm in awe. I just can't even tell you how much. Well, something happened and some people had to pull out of a writing day. So I stepped in and wrote with this artist and with Tori. And, the beginning of her day was a little awkward, like, oh, who does what and all this. But then all of a sudden, even physically in the room, everybody settles in. And I have to tell you, it was one of the most magical days I've ever had as a writer. So I came home that night in our little family time. How was your day? And I was like, maybe I'm not ready to be done with songwriting yet, because today was what I want it to be about.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we get away from it because we become so enamored with success or commerciality or whatever, that I think I've lost. Honestly, I've had a lot of projects that just kind of don't do well. I mean, they do fine, but they don't do well compared to other people, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there goes my comparing myself to other people, which I'm super competitive, just so you know. Like, if I'm writing a letter, I look around, did I finish first, right?
Yeah.
So, and Tori has keyed in that I'm competitive. The other day you were like, Bonnie, Can't we all just be, and I'm like, you're right, you're right, you're right. So all of that to say, there was a moment that was a little awkward and hard. We all settled in, and then it was just like something came out of it that was bigger than all three of us.
Mhm.
This song may never do anything. I'm not even telling you it will or won't. I have no control over that. See, that's the other thing. We do not have control over where those songs go.
Mhm.
What we have control over is putting ourselves in the rooms where we're supposed to be, allowing ourselves to be uncomfortable, then allowing ourselves to do something hard, then allowing ourselves to get comfortable, and then allowing ourselves to just work hard and passionate and be good at what we do.